In section 3.5, we're going to be looking at fitting lines to data and also learning how to be able to create data on Desmos. So we have some examples here. So the little data points that are located on here, all of the dots that are located on here are all of my data points that are graphed. And so we can kind of see the data that's kind of in here. And we draw a line that looks kind of like what the line is supposed to be like, how it fits this particular data. So we can see that the data starts up here at the top, kind of slowly as we go to the right, it slowly decreases. And so this solid line would be probably something that's closer to what this data is doing. Notice that this dashed line looks like it's increasing, but the data doesn't really look like it's increasing overall. Once we move over here, we have the data you can see is kind of heading upwards, is increasing. Both the dashed line and the solid line are also increasing. So which one looks like it's a better fit line? When we're looking at this particular data, we really want to find a line that has, you know, kind of an equal number of points that are above it that are below it. So you'll see the dashed line is probably a better fit than the solid line, because notice how the solid line starts off way down here, not really close to the data, and then kind of goes past the data as it increases. So this dashed line would be probably a better fit for that. As we look at the other data over here, we have our dashed line and our solid line. And in this case, it looks like our solid line actually fits a little bit better because it's a little bit more in the middle of all the data. And as we look at this one, another increasing one, probably the dashed line fits better because, again, it's really towards the middle of the data that we're looking at as we start building them. So we're going to go in and we're going to graph some of this information on our own. So you can see here that we have the weight of ice cream sold at a small store in pounds, which is going to be our X variable. So in this case, we can see those are our X values. So we have our X values, which is the weight, and we have our Y values, which is the average temperature in Celsius degrees. So notice that these degrees are Celsius. So what this data is telling me is that we sold 20 pounds of ice cream when it was 6 degrees Celsius, 18 pounds of ice cream when it was 4.5 degrees Celsius, 21 pounds of ice cream when it's 6.5 degrees Celsius. Now, Celsius in degrees, 0 is 32. Once we start getting up to 6, that becomes actually fairly warm. So we start selling a lot more. You can see that once it was 7.5 degrees Celsius, we were selling the most ice cream at 21.5 pounds. So let's go over to Desmos, and we're going to take a look at how to do this. This is our example, and we can see here, I'm going to move this out of the way. We can see here that we have, I'm going to kind of get this out of the way completely. We can see that we have our X values. Again, remember that X represents the weight of ice cream, and our Y values is the temperature. So we have the temperature that we're dealing with in that particular case. So what we do is you first click on this plus sign. You'll notice that you have this thing called a table. And what you'll do is you'll click on the table. And once you click on the table, it will create these variables X1 and Y1. And then we can start entering in our data as we start going through everything. Now, if I click the table again, notice what it will do is it will create a set of values of X2 and Y2. If I create another table, X3 and Y3, and so on. So keep that in mind if you happen to have those variables as we work with them. But in this case, I'm just going to do the one table. I'm going to get rid of that one. And now what we're going to do is we're going to see how do we fit the data the best way. So what I would do is type in Y, and then just type 1. Notice it creates it as a sub 1. And then we're going to hit the tilde. The tilde is right next to your 1 on your keyboard. And then we're going to do the slope, which is our M value. We're going to do our X1, which is the other side of the table. Notice that it's already starting to create this line for me. So it created just a general line in this case, and then I'm going to do plus B. Remember that these mean something to you, I hope. M is the slope that we learned earlier in the semester, and then B is our y-intercept. That's where it actually crosses the y-axis. So we have those values. What's nice about Desmos is it will do the calculations for me. It says that the slope of the best fit line, notice that the line is going right through the data points, which is what it should be doing. And we can see kind of how it's spacing out the data points pretty evenly. So our slope is positive because it's increasing. Our slope is 0.78. So we have this particular slope that we're dealing with. It's 0.78. And our intercept is -9. Now we can't see the intercept because of how I have the data set up. I'm going to go out a little bit and notice that the data points just get a little bit smaller. And notice here that each one of these shorter squares is, this is -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. And notice it's around -9.5, kind of hanging out in there. And notice that our intercept is -9.4. So what it's doing is it's calculating a line for me, a best fit line, and it's telling me some information. Now, how is this information important? Well, we remember that X was our weight of ice cream. Y was the degrees in Celsius. So when it is -9 degrees Celsius, we do not sell any ice cream. When it hits 0 degrees Celsius, we sell about 12 pounds of ice cream according to this line. As we go up a little bit further at 5 degrees Celsius, notice that the actual number that we sell is 18. The line is telling us that we would be selling on average about 18.5, and that would be based on the data that we have here. So we can use the line to go and make predictions. With Desmos, you can actually click on a point. Notice if I click on the point here, notice it tells me that when it's about 5 degrees Celsius, which is 5.054, we sell about 18.5 pounds of ice cream. And I can keep making those predictions. I can come up here and notice that when it is about 10 degrees Celsius, which is really, really warm, we can sell 25 pounds of ice cream. So that's really all it's really telling me there in terms of the information, and that's what you're learning in this particular section.